Thank you for staying after. Thank you for coming to this special update meeting. We look forward to giving you a quick update, maybe not as quick, but at the same time, we also are looking for you to vote on kind of our next steps as well. So let's begin with a word of prayer. Father, we are entirely grateful to you for what we have and for who we are in you. And we just thank you and we give you the praise and the honor and glory. And we ask that now that as we listen to and as we receive this information, as we disseminate this information, Lord, that you would give us ears to hear and eyes to see what you are doing in our midst and what you're doing in our community and how we can best serve you. And so we give you the praise and the honor and glory. Amen. Okay, so last time, how many of you were here last time? Excellent. Okay, so what we covered last time was we talked about our past, where we were, and that we've been in this building about almost 10 years, and that this building was really kind of intended to be a temporary space, and we talked about that. We talked about our present. We talked about some of the things that are happening with us in terms of growth and in terms of this facility as a whole. And we talked about possibilities. Today, what we want to do is give you a quick update in and around possibilities. And then what we want to be thinking about is, when we go through these possibilities, is that we'd like for you to help us in terms of recognizing the two possibilities that we are going to present as our recommendations and ask you to vote in terms of, you know, those possibilities if they are something that you agree with and align with in terms of your experience here at the well. So the first thing I want to talk about is goals. What were our goals in terms of when we went into this from a feasibility perspective, looking at what our options are and what our present or what our past, present, and our possibilities were? One of the goals was really to keep tithes and offering focused on ministry and not on facility. And then the second goal was really to, because today the building income pays for the facility. So the building that we rent, you all know that we have renters, you know, in the facility, that we have 3 renters, you know, 3 tenants in this facility. They pay for for this facility, for the mortgage. So our desire is to stay in a similar model so that whether we continue in the facility in terms of a rental facility or we sell the facility, that it would help pay for our next place, okay, from that perspective. Does that make sense from an overall goal perspective, what we are looking to do? Okay, good. Next. So wanted to show you a little bit. This is the building as it was in 2015. And as you can see in 2015, basically each of those little quadrants up there, that's about 1,400 square feet in those little spaces up there. The bigger spaces are over 4,000 square feet. You're sitting right now onto the right side. Together, it's about 21,000 square feet of space, this entire facility. Okay, that's what it looked like in 2015. Okay, let's go to the next slide. The next slide shows you the blue over here is, let me start with the pink. The pink is really the restaurant on the left, and the yellow is the green is the barber shop. The blue is our dentist's office, and our yellow is where we currently have space for the well. So you can see right here that there's not a contiguous space for the well. We have a dentist's office in between us and between offices and where the kids are at as well, and where the youth group is at. So I wanted to, you're probably aware of this, I just wanted to give you a picture of this from the perspective of this is what we're talking about when we talk about the facility, okay? Next slide, please. So one of the 5 possibilities that we came up with, and we talked about 4 of these last time. The first possibility in terms of future is this, is that we can continue the way we are today. We can continue exactly the way we are. That was brought up last time we met, that we could just stay where we're at, and this is the facility, and we have a gap, and we have that. We will talk a little bit more about that. Second possibility is that we can change the current building configuration, but still stay with the same space. In other words, we can realign the space, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Third possibility is that we can take the tenants, and as they expire or as they change or as we desire to change the tenants out, we can redeploy the tenants. Not necessarily an option that we want to talk about, but we are going to talk about it. It's a possibility. That would give us some more space, essentially, because the tenants obviously take up space. The fourth possibility is turn the building into a rental income. And essentially, as we do that, we'll talk about a little bit about what that means in each of these possibilities. The last one is sell the building and then look for a new space. Possibilities 4 and 5 are both looking for new space in terms of facilities. Possibility number 3 is really staying here but reconfiguring in a bigger way. Possibility number 2, kind of going up the ladder now, is that we stay in the current 11,000 square feet, but we just reconfigure so that we're contiguous in that space. And then the last one is, again, that we stay and just do what we're doing right now today. So let's get into the possibilities real quick. First one is that we continue on how we are today. So we would renew our mortgages coming up in January 2026. Well, in that space of time, it'll be a 15-year renewal for our mortgage. One of the things that we can say is that we know, and for many of you, you know that interest rates have gone up. Okay, they haven't gone down since we refinanced. So interest rates have gone up. They're probably going to be around 6%. I think before we were at right around 3.5% is where we're at today in terms of our mortgage rate. So that right there, we know that the cost of just staying here is going to increase. The other thing is that as we look at our payment will go up. Obviously, it's going to go up to approximately $8,500. Right now, it's around $7,500 per month, which we collect in terms of the tenant space income. So we're going to have a shortage of about $1,000 a month. And then when we look at an income ratio compliance, that's going to have to be made up through tithes and offerings. And again, that kind of goes against what our goals is we're trying to take the facility and make the facility pay for itself, and then tithes or offerings are towards ministry. So that income ratio is really important to us when we go to refinance, when we talk to a bank, we talk to a lender, which we're going to have to do later this year, no matter what. And then obviously, as I'm stating here, is that there's some refinance issues for us from that perspective. Okay, just staying here, cost goes up. Plus the fact that staying here, as we talked about before, it really doesn't lend itself for growth, and it doesn't lend itself for this facility, especially from the kids area and from the non-contiguousness of that. From a security perspective, it doesn't lend anything for us from the current way we're doing church today in this facility. So that leads us to possibility number 2. Possibility number 2. Basically, in possibility number 2, we change the current configuration. What we do is we essentially take the dentist office, which you saw before, which was in that map, and then we move the dentist office to where the well offices are today, okay? That would give us contiguous space. That would basically align the church so that the church is all in one space. That gives us the ability to reconfigure some of our space as well. But we end up having just about 11,000 square feet, which is what we are today. It's just that we are contiguous in that model, okay? And allows us to gain probably some space, but we would have to optimize some space. For example, we might not have as many offices, we might not even have offices, okay, from that perspective. The cost for that is about $1.6 million to do this change, to move the dentist, to move him back towards where the barbershop is, to do that change and to reconfigure this is about $1.6 million. And that, obviously, what that relates to is that's an increase to our mortgage. That increase to our mortgage is going to be right around $12,000 a month. So, and that means also that we're really not changing any building income. It's the same 3 tenants that are there today, and essentially, it provides us with minimal growth, but it's more convenience and security option for us. So that is possibility number 2. I'm going to fly through this only because I want to maximize our time here, okay? And I'll take questions at the end if you're okay with that, okay? Possibility number 3 is that we take and we reduce our tenants. And what does that mean? Well, that means we look at the end of the lease when the tenants are up and we don't renew their lease, and we essentially allow them to leave or provide them with some incentive to leave, or offer them some gifts to leave. Honestly, it's basically asking the tenants in some way, shape, or form to leave. Well, you can see that really what that does for us is that we can gain for between 1,400 square feet and 11,000 square feet, which is the whole thing. If we have every tenant to leave, that's 11,000 square feet. If we ask just the barbershop to leave, for example, that would just be 1,400 square feet. That's why I say it's a range. It depends on if we ask all three to leave, if we ask one to leave, if we ask two to leave. Well, the number one thing that that does is it reduces our income. So now we're reducing our income, plus we're increasing our expenses from the perspective of that we're building out. In order to build out, you're going to have money, right? So that's going to be around a $3 million build out, or excuse me, it's going to be around $2.2 million build out to do that. Just to take, from an example of just taking one of that space and building it out, just like the previous option in possibility number one. So here, we lose income, we gain expenses, which is not the right way we want to necessarily go from that perspective. We gain space. We can gain up to the entire building space, which is, like I said, it's 21,000. I said 22,000, but it's actually 21,000 square feet. That's the total space. But we then have no income from any tenants. That means all tithes and offerings would then be going towards the building, okay, from that perspective. Does everybody understand that option? Okay, great. So we're going to go to possibility number 4. Possibility number 4 is that we turn the building into rental income. You know, we take the space that the well occupies today, in the yellow, if you remember back to the drawing, the yellow spaces, that's about 11,000 square feet. And we turn this space that you're sitting in today, we turn the office space into rental space so that it's available for example, medical services. Most of you are aware that Trinity Health is building up in this area. They project to be in their office, in their new facility in March of 2026. They've been purchasing quite a bit of the area, and they've been also looking for renters for this area so that their medical facilities and medical offices outside of their facility can be located here as well. So that's a possibility for us from the opportunity that's presented by Trinity Health expanding. They are expanding. They are closing the Howell facility, like I said last update, and they're going to be moving all of Howell over here, and they're going to be looking for offices, medical offices as well. Along with their partners, they're going to be looking for medical offices. So that gives us an opportunity to open up this space to be rental income. We keep the current renters that they're here. We keep the current tenants that are here, the restaurant, the barbershop, the dentist. We keep them, but then we add additional rental income. Our expected rental income would be about $242,000 per year, roughly $20,000 and change per month. This is in talking with some real estate folks that are in around that. It's about $22 per square foot that we would get in and around sending this area and the office area up for lease. Okay, for that. The expected construction time, because there's going to be time that we have to convert this space, is going to be about 12 months. So in this possibility, we're looking for a temporary home. Obviously, you can see that we wouldn't be able to meet necessarily in here. Last possibility, possibility number 5, is that we sell the building. We look for a new space to occupy. In selling the building right now, we have estimated, and we have been provided an estimate that where the value of the building is around $3.5 million. We owe about $1.1 million. So that leaves us with about 2.4 in terms of cash assets that we would have. And we would apply that towards building another building or finding an older building and renovating that. But somewhere to find a new home, basically. So we would sell this building, receive the profits from that, and look to build or look to buy, you know, a new or old facility and move into that space, aligning with that. Obviously, again, temporary home would be needed because unless we have something that we can immediately move into right away, that would be the only option for us. And we haven't seen anything like that yet. If you know anything, let us know. Okay, anybody have any questions around the 5 possibilities? I know I said I'm going to hold to the end, but I want to ask, anybody have any questions around, because I really breezed through that really quick. So, yes? Go ahead. You. Or it could be you.
Okay. Go over here, maybe. It might be better. Maybe I'm too close to you. So with possibility number so renting out, us finding a temporary place and then renting out the spaces here, both here and where the offices are. So we find a place to worship, and then what about offices? I mean, are Jeff and the staff working from home then, and then meeting wherever when they have to meet?
Yeah, that would be the plan, is that we would actually, any renovation in terms of our first step would be to actually take the office area first, and then those offices, they would just move into a home space, and then meet, as needed, face-to-face when required.
Okay, and then let's say you rent it out, and then the offer comes in and it's too good to pass up to maybe sell the building later on, right? Has that ever been considered?
We've talked about it. It's one of those things where it would be great honestly, if we had a fantastic offer that came in, that would actually ease a lot of pain from that perspective. But it's at the same time, we also have to be realistic, and real estate, especially in this area, is actually, there's more for sale. There's a lot for sale, from a real estate perspective. So we're competing against a lot. So chances of that happening, still kind of slim.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I'll come back to you.
All right.
And we're going to see how fast Andy can run.
Hi, is there any possibility that renting the spaces out here will actually produce enough income to help fund a different facility, or will it be just enough income to make up for the renovation?
Good question. Yes. So the short answer is yes. There's a possibility. It all depends on the type of facility that comes in, because there's different, if we look at just the medical arena, there's a lot of different type of medical services that could be used. This is a wonderful large space for a medical service that needs a large space, so that could really bring some nice income in from that perspective. When you get to the smaller spaces, obviously that's more consulting, more probably just visitation, as less as maybe having instruments and so forth. But yes, that is one of our hopes as well.
At one point, I know we had, one of our renters had owed us quite a bit of money in back rent. Do you know what the current situation is with that?
Yes, we're in an agreement right now with that organization that they would begin repaying that back owed, mainly due to the COVID issues and so forth. So they are in the process of actually giving us additional monthly income in regards to that, and paying off that they need us, that we're servicing for them. So yes, good question.
Right here. Could you go back to possibility 3 a minute? There's a tick at the bottom that you missed. Will result in ministry cuts. Okay, so that's just a possibility 2. There it is. Yeah, so that's one that, both of those actually, 2 and 3. So
correct.
That has some staffing implications as well, not just facility implications. If you go back to 4 a second, please. You're talking about $250,000 income roughly if the place were to go ahead and be totally rented out. If we go to 5 again for a minute, it looks like there's a need for about $2.5 million, roughly, once you get the sale done. $250,000, so that's 4, 8, 10 years. It would take roughly, on a straight line, to be in a temporary facility to have everything that we needed to build. Is there 10 years is a long time in a temporary facility. It's been done before.
Are you asking? I'm not sure what the question is, Bill.
I'm just mentioning that in doing a little math, my brain works that way mathematically. It looks like 10 years before you get enough money to go ahead. And in that time, of course, the costs increase. So
Yeah,
how
yeah,
long will we expect to be staying in a temporary facility then?
Yeah, the temporary facility would be, again, once we have direction, and in terms of if it's rental income or if it's business sale, then it really is dependent upon where our next facility is. Is it new and we're building, or is it renovating an old space and then we're in there sooner? You know, so it's a range of, if it's new and building, it's going to take a lot longer potentially than renovation. But here's the thing on renovations. How many of you have ever renovated your house? You know, and then that project, did it take like 2 weeks? You told, you know, your spouse, you know, hey, it's going to take 2 weeks, and, you know, 10 weeks later, right? And how much have you spent, you know, on that renovation? So it's the same principle here. Chris, am I correct on that? See, spot on. Chris said spot on over there, so. Yes.
I forgot my question. No.
Oh, thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Thank you for answering that. So I'm curious what the overseers, having gone through the creation of those possibilities, you've obviously done some analysis. Where would you lean?
That is a great question. Let's throw the slide up that says recommendations. Oh, before we get there, let's go back to new or old. Let's go back to new or old. So just new or old, just some numbers just to throw out to you, because we started looking at old. Old meaning renovation, okay? Old doesn't mean staying here. It means possibilities 4 and 5. Old meaning we're going to renovate. So new property costs we've been seeing is around $200,000 to $900,000 for property, just property alone in this area. New building costs is between 4.5 to about $6 million. Okay, those are our estimates. Total estimates between 4.7 and 6.9, so about $7 million. Old renovation costs would be about $4 million if that's for a 20,000 square foot facility, and it's roughly around $200 per square feet of the cost. That's what we've been told. So old, obviously, as we talked about, old could be less money in the short term, but in the long term, it could actually burn us because you're buying an older facility. You don't always know what you're getting yourself into. Things break down a little bit faster with older facilities than with new. That's just kind of the way it goes. So let's go into recommendations. So our recommendations as overseers is that we would like to proceed with possibilities 4 and 5 and pursuing those possibilities. That really kind of takes out the elimination of possibilities 1 through 3, although 1 is always here because that's just stand fat. So it's really taking out possibilities 2 and 3, okay, taking those out. We'd like to discuss these options with lenders. To date, we've had some discussions with lenders just in terms of where we're at presently, okay, and what our new mortgage would be. That's the discussions that we've had with the lenders predominantly. We like to present them with some what-if scenarios and talk to the lenders in and around that. And when I say lenders is that we have a bank, but it's a good practice to basically look for other banks as well so that they compete against each other, because banks compete. Sometimes you get a different answer from a different bank. The next thing is that this would include this possibility, this recommendation is that we would also start marketing either leasing this building or selling this building. And that's an impact to our renters, that's an impact to our tenants. So we would ask that you not share with them this information. They're a little bit aware that we're looking into things. We've had a little bit of discussion with them in and around some of this, but not to this level. We wanted to include you first before we talk to even our tenants. Then let me come back to design build, and then we want to look for cost-effective property in the area. Okay, we've done some preliminary search for that, and that's how we came up with the 200 to 900,000 price range. So we've done some preliminary search, but we really want to hone in our search and really kind of focus in on the area where you guys all live, so that we're not, if we move way up to, Heartland or something like that, or Fenton, if we move to Fenton, there's some people that would really love Fenton area, but we know there's others that, I don't know. So we want to look for an area that's really in the center of where we're all located. And then obviously we want to recommend that we begin a building drive fund, just a capital fund so that we can start putting some money away towards what we do, okay, and start. That's the key word is start there. So let me go back to a design build contract. Can you go back slide, please? A design-build contract with a construction company is that it's broken out into 3 phases. And essentially, the first phase is site assessment. That costs us a little bit of money. That site assessment is really, they go with us, they determine whether or not, if we look at a new site, if we look at an old site, they tell us what's wrong with both of those and what we got to do to basically to go in and make an offer and to essentially make an appropriate offer. So they'll come out before pre-offer and tell us what's wrong, and that when we include an offer, this is what we're going to offer based on what they see. So that's a preliminary site assessment. They'll do 3 or 5 of them with us, you know, go out, look at those properties, and basically help us in that. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is that they would do due diligence and planning. So that would take things like soil samples. Okay, is the environmental, is it good to build on? Okay, is there structural integrity in terms of if it's an existing building, or do you have a foundational problem with an existing building? Do you have a roof problem? That never happens, right? If you have a roof problem, if you have electrical problem, blah, blah, blah. So they'll look at all that in phase 2. In phase 3, no matter what we're doing, if we're renovating or if we're building new, that's when we would actually authorize construction. Each of these phases, okay, in terms of for the well, we would enter into a contract, a design build says that we're not obligated unless we agree to this particular phase. So we're in phase, so if we want to be in phase 1, we would say, okay, this is the site we're going to, we authorize you to go out and maybe do a review of that site, come back and tell us what the price is, and that's all we pay. We're not paying for anything additional. We're not committing ourselves. The only time that we commit ourselves in a design-build contract is basically phase 3. That's where you're saying, yep, we got a property, yep, we've got a renovation work here to do, we authorize it, we're ready to go. We are completely ready to go at that point. If we back out of the agreement in phase 3, then we would only owe what they have done so far in the building, materials and labor associated with that, and any fees that are associated with that as well. So this design-build contract is something that we want to enter into now so that we can really start doing that first phase, site assessment phase. Okay? Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions on design-build?
Design build, but with options 4 and 5, all your estimates for income is based on medical facility. Is this building zoned medical, or is that based on the city approving it for medical facility?
It's a good question. So really, it's just, we looked at medical because that was the easiest for us to really look at, because that's hot in this area. We didn't really look at anything else in terms of, you know, would there be a potential for some other suitors come in? Yep. So we would have to look at that. Any other questions about design build or anything else possibility-wise?
Hi, has anybody considered the effects that possible tariffs that are on and off will have an effect on this project?
You mean like the tariffs that the current administration is looking at between countries?
Yep, sometimes they're on, sometimes they're off, and that would have a huge effect on building. Has the costs that could add been considered?
We haven't even talked about it from a tariff perspective because it's still kind of an unknown, and what I mean by that is the impact of it. Now the tariff suggestion and recommendations from an economic perspective, you're seeing probably more in the market space, you know, stock market space, the volatility there. But you know, from a building acquisition and feasibility perspective, we haven't really seen or even talked about it at all. So not sure what it would bring either, to be honest with you.
Yeah, when we look at the build itself, so do we already have a design and we've already got that looked at by an architect or so, for the new build? If we're going to go through all this and we're going to potentially push forward with build and design, does that mean we've already looked at a building, like a design of a building, had it through an architect, and we can see the planning of what that building would look like?
No, we haven't looked at a design. What the design build really does is that it aligns us with a partnership with a construction company that essentially their first phase would be help us with site assessment. And then they would also come in and bring a template to us. And we've talked to, you know, a few construction companies from that perspective. They would bring in a template and say, this is the kind of building that we suggest for you, what your needs are. And we would gather requirements in terms of total needs. We've done some of that. We did a little bit of gathering requirements to determine what our expected needs are, and especially in terms of growth. But we have no building design yet at all, because that's really a little bit preliminary. Once we're at that step, though, we would present that to you guys before we have anything approved, so that you guys can take a look at it and weigh in on it. Yes?
Where was it, sorry?
Thanks. My question is, with the medical leases, how long typically are those leases?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years.
That's it?
You
Really?
know, it can be longer if they desire, but it's not always to our benefit as a building owner to have a long lease, unless you have some good out clauses in there.
Okay, and then in the math, are we building in the renovation costs back into their leases?
Yes, that would be part of what we're looking to do. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I chime in on that?
Yeah, Jeff, just wanted to chime in.
We're currently dipping our toes in medical with a dentist, right? And he's on a 10-year lease. They don't ever want much less than that, especially if there's a large build-out that we negotiate with them. So, and then someone else asked, you know, what about, I think it was Steve or someone about medical. We've already got some medical here, so we're dipping our toe in, and they generally like long-term contracts. They do not want to move.
So for the lease thing, for like the current renters and their leases, and how Jeff was saying that the dentist has like a 10-year lease, how does that happen if we were to like sell or rent out all this stuff and then eventually sell? Like, do we have to break leases? Do we owe them money back? Or anything like that too?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Jeff answer that question.
I'm not a lawyer, but I paid a lot of them. So typically what happens, like when we purchased this building from the original owner, the leases came with it. So they do what's called an estoppel agreement, which would mean that the leases then go to the possession of the new owner. That new owner can then decide what they want to do with that. They can either decide to break that lease and pay that person to leave, or whatever they want to do. But we would sign an estoppel, the tenant would sign an estoppel, and then the negotiation would be between they and the new landlords. No, that would all be part of the sale.
Any other questions? Over here.
Option 4 and 5 require the use of a temporary facility. What have you looked at in terms of temporary facilities that the church might use?
Yeah, we had we had an option come up several months back. It was a temporary facility that might have worked well for us, but they were looking to get the tenant in right away, and so they wanted immediate occupancy almost. So we had to let that one go, honestly, because it was there. It was actually a pretty good site for us, and it might have worked out really well. So we'll need prayer on that one, because we need something opened up for us, honestly. And that could be a school, could be just a location where we can fit in, but we would need prayer for that, absolutely. Yeah, our basement. Wait, you're gonna renovate our basement? $2.5 million? Yeah, I'm in. Thank you, Chris.
One more, promise. What's occurring to me is the price per square foot for renovation at $200 a square foot seems a little low to me. And I talked to a commercial builder that was a previous client of ours, and I think they told me to plan around 300. So I'm curious where that 200 came from, because that's a significant difference.
Yeah, we got that from a construction company that we've done some conversations, had some conversations with. Yeah, you're right, could be lower. could be, by the time that we get to that point, could be higher because prices are rising and inflation still is in play as well. So, yep, could be higher. We feel fairly confident that we could keep it at 200, but it also depends on the type of renovation that we're doing as well. You know, if we're doing major structural integrity kind of things, that's going to drive the price up way higher. Yep, so it's a good point though. Everything probably will continue to rise in terms of price. I don't see prices coming down really that soon unless somebody else does. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to ask Diane. Diane, you did a count of everyone and did a, do we have a quorum, Diane?
Yes.
We have a quorum. Okay, so what we're going to ask is that if you are a member, then you are eligible to vote for this recommendation. These recommendations. Can you put the recommendations back on the slide there? Yes. Yeah, I was getting there. You thought I forgot. I knew you. Think I forgot. So, if you're not a member and would like to become a member, okay, our membership is this, is that we ask that you have a testimony and proclaim Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and that if you have been baptized, that you identify that you have also been baptized, and if you haven't been baptized and would like to be baptized, we have a baptismal service coming up on Easter. What a perfect time. So if you're not a member and would like to become a member right now, right this moment, raise your hand. And if you're afraid to raise your hand, you can see Diane afterwards. Over here too? Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I know that we're kind of putting you on the spot, so, but thank you. So now, I'm just going to give them a little bit of time. Anybody have any more questions about what we're asking you to vote on, these recommendations and moving forward? Any questions around that? No, Bill doesn't need a sheet. Or do you need a sheet? He needs a sheet and a microphone there.
After this meeting,
Yes.
okay, where are we going next? I mean, the question would be, is this the final decision? It sounds like not, but where do we go after this then?
Yeah, great question, Bill. So next steps is that we would enter into design-build contract, okay? And again, we're not paying anything unless we authorize anything to be paid. That first phase, as you saw, the first phase, the max it goes to is around 10,000, okay? We do have that capability to spend that, but that's only if we select a site. So the next phase is that we would look at and determine what sites, and we would present that to you, what sites. And we would also tell you as far as what a potential design might look like as well from that perspective. At least give you some high-level design perspectives, and then give you, essentially taking you each step of the journey. You would tell us that you're ready on that each step of the journey. We would tell you where we're at and where we're recommending for you, and you would vote on each step of the journey from that perspective. Bye, Jeff. Jeff is leaving. Everybody say bye to Jeff. He's on a flight.
Question I have, with looking at options 4 and 5, if we took on option 4, then we would become we are right now, but we actually be really like a full-time landlord. And with us needing to take 12 months to build this out to be a completely used facility for tenants, are we being truly, as landlords and as business people, are we truly being wise with the type of tenants we have in here? So if this is going to be a predominantly medical facilities, does that draw more income than the restaurant and the barber shop? And if it does, then should we then look at, once their leases are up, having them step out or breaking their leases, and so that we can increase the income for the entire space?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, Gary. I think the main question, I would summarize it as this, is that we would kind of have to become a property manager. That would be the role in which a property manager for the well does. And essentially, I'm not saying that we're advertising for a full-time property management position, but at the same time, we have talked about the fact that we probably will need guidance, either on a consultant basis or some type of property management, because those are property management issues to take a look at. So absolutely, it's something that we would have to take a look at and measure into. Each of the leases, none of the leases are up. Diane, if you could tell me if I'm right on this, none of the leases are up this year. They're up one next year and then 2 in 27? Yeah. So we've got a little bit of time from the lease perspective. And even when they're up, the leases, it's just an automatic renewal that they're on. So they just automatically renew from that perspective. But it gives us an opportunity to either do some things with the lease, add some additions, or take some subtractions out of the lease, depending upon what we want to do. But property management is a part of the role. If we rent out, going to possibility number 4 is something that we would need. We've recognized that. Yes? I could have just given you
Okay, no feedback, okay. So are you, how can I put this? I'll just say it. Are you someone asking for us to kind of keep a lookout for maybe a potential building or potential property? And if that's the case, what are you asking us to kind of keep an eye out for? Like how much acreage, how big of a building, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so looking out for property, what we've identified is between 4 to 5 acres kind of minimum is what we've been told it's recommended for us, especially because we don't want to buy property and then be so small that we can't grow outside of that, in terms of continuing growth. So we've been told is that probably we want to stay in that 3 to 4 to 5, I would say 4 to 5 starting with, and then up to 10. Any more than 10, then we're managing something that we don't really want to manage, which is an extensive acreage. From that perspective, you have to keep that maintained, and there's a cost associated with that. So I'd say between 4 and 10 is what we're looking for. And if you see any property, let me know. Just feel free to give me a buzz, email me, call me, whatever, text, carrier pigeon to my house, anything. Any other questions around recommendations? Okay, so what I'm going to ask for you to do is that I'm going to say all in favor, and you guys raise your hand and say aye, and if you don't agree, then just say nay. Okay, so all in favor? Any nays? You're voting on these recommendations. Yes. Okay, let me go do this again, okay? All in favor for the recommendations that we have up on the screen, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Okay, the ayes have it. The vote is carried. We will then, what I'd like to do is just kind of close out in terms of our ask for you. Our ask of you is that you did the first thing, which is vote, and thank you so much. This will bring us to our next steps. Then we will provide you with another update next month and fill you in on what those steps have done and what we've done in terms of that process. But we ask mainly that you continue to pray. Pray for us in terms of wisdom. Pray for us in terms of a church that we are honoring God in everything that we do and everything that every transaction, every interaction, every phone call, everything that's laid out for us, that first of all, that he would open doors, second of all, that it would be all done with integrity, with honor, and with grace and with mercy. Okay? So why don't you guys all stand up and we'll close in prayer. Father God, we thank you that we have the ability to gather today in your name. Thank you for your people. Thank you for how your people in unity is such a blessing. And we just, right now, Father, we just thank you for the blessing that the well has been to this community, and ask that this would continue and that you would provide guidance, that you would provide wisdom, and that you are guidance and that you are wisdom. And we just thank you and give you the glory for all things. In Jesus' name, amen. You are dismissed.